Welcome, you're now listening to episode 130 from the Shed End with myself, Theo. How you doing, Theo? How's things?
Not bad, yeah. Pretty pumped. Managed to get a ticket for the Panathinaikos away game yesterday, as well as an away ticket for Liverpool. And I feel like I was in the mood to get those tickets straight after the West Ham win on Saturday. So yeah, it feels like a bit of a feel-good factor around Chelsea at the moment, and excited to see some football. Work is busy at the moment, but that's just a complete other story. But other than that, I'm good. How are you doing?
Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm good. Obviously, a lot better than I was at the weekend. Sort of getting over the joys of having kids sneeze and cough in your face, but that's life. But no, good. Good like you, looking forward to the football, enjoying the football at the moment. We're going to get into the West Ham game and talk about Barrow later. But before we do that, as always, please subscribe if you haven't already. We are on the road to 450 subscribers. So we're trying to get there, as soon as possible. So we appreciate everyone that is subscribing, liking the videos and interacting, especially on the audio version as well of the podcast. So if you haven't already done so, make sure you hit the Linktree link in the description. That will take you to all the previous episodes and the social media accounts as well. So let's go back to Saturday. 12:30 kickoff, which is, I mean, we said it last week, didn't we? We hate 12:30 kickoffs because it can make or break the weekend. Thankfully for us, it made the weekend because it was a really good performance from Chelsea. But what was your thoughts in the game? Obviously, we'll talk about Nico Jackson separately, but superb performance.
Yeah, really, really good performance. It just felt like we were in control from minute one in a way. Really helped that Jackson got that early goal. And you kind of summed it up perfectly. It's like sometimes you don't want to get that early goal because then it just means that you have to kind of watch 85 minutes of us defending a lead and feeling a bit nervy. And that was kind of the story of last season. I'm remembering back those games away to Sheffield United, at home against Burnley, where we kind of got an early lead, I think, and then we just struggled to kind of hold on to it. We couldn't defend it. That being said, I think on Saturday we were absolutely fantastic. We got the goal and then we always looked dangerous after that. I think we looked particularly dangerous in the transition when we kind of would break up play. And beyond the break, especially Caicedo, who I think was absolutely fantastic on the day.
Yeah.
He kind of looked like almost a Kante regen at times with how he would dispossess West Ham players, regain possession, and then also just his assist for the second Nico Jackson goal was fantastic as well. We're going to talk about them in a bit, but I think Jackson was great as well, really, really clinical. I think that's something we wanted to kind of see him do a bit more. And we mentioned it on last week's episode when we kind of said he's getting goals, but sometimes we want him to get those goals and those one-on-ones in the positions. Maybe you wouldn't really always expect him to get goals, and that's what he did on Saturday. I think it was a good performance, but I think West Ham were poor. That has to be said.
Yeah.
I think we kind of said it again last week that this would be the perfect time to play them because they've got a lot of new signings, a new manager, and it felt like they haven't really properly gelled yet and created that squad cohesion. And that kind of was apparent on Saturday. They looked like a group of 11 players that maybe hadn't played together or didn't really know what the manager expected from them. I think the one kind of just small bits of criticism that I would say is that it was only 3-0. I think I think Cole Palmer had a brilliant chance in the first half. Madueke had a really good chance where he could have laid it off to Neto, I think it was, and he was quite selfish and tried to shoot.
Yeah.
And then the last one was the Nkuku header. I'm not sure if it was a really bad miss or if it was a really good save from Areola. Maybe a mix of both. And then the last thing I'll say is I think when they were celebrating with the fans at full time, it looked like Fofana's knee was heavily strapped in ice.
Yeah.
So that could be another injury that we might have to deal with. But overall, really good performance. 3-0, clean sheet. And I think that's now 5 away wins, 5 consecutive away wins. So I think it's Nottingham Forest away last season, Brighton away last season. And then if we go into this season, Wolves, Bournemouth, and now West Ham. And those are 5 grounds that we've actually struggled
Yeah.
in the last couple of seasons. And we haven't always gotten the results, especially Molineux and the West Ham Stadium. So I think that's really pleasing to see that we've picked up the points there. We've done it in kind of a convincing fashion as well.
Yeah, and we said before, didn't we, last Friday, that I think our last win was 2021, Timo Werner, in the Premier League at the London Stadium. So to get an emphatic victory and play the way, I know, like you just said, West Ham were poor. They were very, very poor. You could see by half, the 35-minute mark that I think they made a change. They brought on a sub to try and change things, and it was just poor from them. It was so easy to get through their midfield. There was no shape from West Ham, so it just made things, for us to be able to play the way that we wanted to do. West Ham playing a high line, it just suited Nicholas Jackson. It suited Sancho. It suited Madueke. They were having acres of space to run into, which just helped. And like you said, we should have had a lot more goals from the chances that we created. And Kunku's, I can kind of give him a bit of a leeway, but it's still a bad header because it's almost, I'm trying to think what game I watched last week. I think it was the Champions League game, and the guy had the penalty. I can't remember who took a penalty, but it was like a double save from Raya. It was almost like that header again because put it towards the corner and the goalkeeper's got no chance of getting that. You kind of put it towards the middle of the goal. He's got a 50 to 60% chance of saving it. So it was just a really poor header. But that's not to take away the performance. Caicedo, I feel like we're slowly seeing the Caicedo that we expected to see. Coming in at £100 million price tag is always going to be difficult, I think, for any player. But to see him come in now and slowly, and he's doing it quietly. He's not doing it with loads of, there's not a lot of noise around his name anymore. And you kind of reference him to Kante, and you kind of see that on Saturday, just breaking up play, being able to take on players, drive forward with the ball, interceptions, tackles. He was doing everything. So for me, we're slowly seeing some progress with this team. We do have to talk about Nicholas Jackson. I want to talk about him now because I think, as I said to you before we came on, I criticise him a lot when he doesn't play well. It's only right for me to praise him when he does play well. And both goals were brilliant. Brilliant goals. Let's talk about the first one first of all. Very quick off the mark to think forward with that one.
Yeah, I felt like just West Ham was still in the dressing room with getting their pre-match tactics from Lopetegui because they were still asleep, absolutely asleep. I think it's a quick free kick. Jackson gets it on that position he often excels in, which is on the kind of left-hand side. And that's the one thing I kind of still feel like he plays better sometimes on the wing or on the kind of flank than more centrally. But then the second goal actually demonstrates that he is capable of doing that centrally. But the first goal I thought was fantastic. He kind of drove the ball forward. I think it's Edson Alvarez who was chasing him, but we know that he just doesn't have the legs to keep up with him. And then he's kind of from a tight angle, but just kind of caresses it under Areola, that gap between his legs. It's maybe a bit fortunate because I think maybe a better goalkeeper or maybe on a different day, the keeper saves that potentially. But, sometimes you just got to get it on target and see what happens. And that's what he did. So, yeah, really, really good goal. And it almost felt like, we were still kind of adapting to watching the game and we're not used to scoring that early. Watching recent Chelsea performances. But yeah, really pleased that he got that goal and that kind of maybe perhaps helped calm the nerves slowly going into the rest of the 85 minutes.
Do you think I agree with you, but do you think because I think I said this to you when the goal went in, that the goal Areola should do better. And I don't know if he's half thinking, guard my near post, but I also have to be aware that he might go across goal and go for the far post as well. And he was almost hesitant to decide which one he wanted to try and cover. I think he nutmegs him in the end, doesn't he, with the goal? But it was. I mean, I always worry, and it's not my concern. I don't support West Ham, but I always worry when I see a goalkeeper get beaten at his near post like that, and it can happen. It can happen to any goalkeeper. But I feel like that would have been a goal Nicholas Jackson would have missed last season.
Yeah, I think so. Even more so the second one than the first one. I think.
Yeah.
I think the second one is the type of goal he would have split straight at the keeper, or maybe even putting it off target. That first one, I think it's very difficult not to get it on target. But like you said, I think maybe Areola's got to be doing better. It's that awkward one as a goalkeeper where you want to kind of make yourself big and spread yourself. So in a small chance that maybe he kind of goes across to your far post or perhaps even in the roof of the net. But in this case, it was just quite unfortunate for Areola, but fortunate for us that he kind of just placed it under his body. And that was that small gap between his legs. But yeah, like I said, maybe a different keeper on a different occasion or even Areola on a better day, he potentially saves that.
Yeah, definitely. Let's move over to the second goal because, again, brilliant bit of build-up play. Something that we haven't really seen for a while at Chelsea in terms of, I think it was Enzo passes it to Caicedo. I might have got the sequence wrong, but what a ball from Moises Caicedo through the West Ham midfield, through the defence, splits it all open. And the knowledge and I don't want to say intellect, that's probably the wrong word to use for Nicholas Jackson in terms of what I'm trying to explain, but just have to have that football knowledge to make sure you stay on side, to time your run really well, and just to execute the goal outside of the boot. I mean, Victor Osimhen, who do we need him? I mean, we've got Nicholas Jackson now, but what a goal! What a brilliant goal!
Yeah, really, really good goal. And like you said, for me, it just started with that build up. I think even Cucurella was involved in the build up as the inverted fullback playing in midfield. But it's all about that pass from Caicedo. I mentioned him being almost like a Kante regen, but that was a pass that maybe prime Fabregas would have been proud of.
Yep.
And then take nothing away from the finish from Nicholas Jackson, because outside of the boot, like you said, and he just kind of almost strokes it past, or kind of not toe pokes it, but just kind of pops it through to that little gap where Areola just can't save it. And yeah, it was a fantastic finish. And you could tell he was just full of confidence going into that game. So yeah, really, really good performance. And then even beyond that goal, I think he lays it off to Cole Palmer for the third goal as well. So I think it's just overall kind of involved scoring 2 goals, assisting a third one. It was a fantastic performance. And then you kind of felt like when Maresca took him off and wanted to give players like Neto, Joao Felix, Dewsbury Hall a chance to kind of play, maybe another player might have pulled a potential tantrum, or even Jackson last season might have pulled a bit of a strop, being on 2 goals, wanting a hat-trick, but he actually looked like, all right, you know what, I'm happy to go off, I play my part. So yeah, really, really pleased for him. Just his kind of demeanour, his attitude and his performances are kind of now proving a lot of people wrong, including ourselves, I think, who we kind of often criticised him last season. So yeah, we've got to give him his flowers for that performance on Saturday.
Yep, well deserved, very well deserved. And obviously Cole Palmer's goal, I mean, it was brilliant. I mean, we expect it from Cole Palmer because he did have a couple of chances in the first half, as you said, and he was obviously, I think one of them was just off target. I think one of them the goalkeeper saves, but the goal, I mean, it just shows what sort of player he is, because he, you know, some players when they miss 1 or 2 chances, their head goes down, the confidence oozes out. They don't ooze confidence, sorry, so they don't have anything to go off. But he didn't let it bother him, you know, and he still goes out there, he still performs really well. And the goals he's scoring are actually, I mean, they look easy on the eye, but they're actually really difficult to score. Really difficult to score. What was your thoughts on that one? Because that was, again, brilliant goal.
Really good goal. He was quite quiet in the game against Bournemouth, and he had quite a quiet first half, I felt, and particularly that chance that he just kind of drags it wide. But I feel like the last couple of seasons as a Chelsea fan, you watch all these training videos where you see these players smashing them in on at Cobham, and you're kind of thinking to yourself, like, why can't they do this on the pitch during a 90-minute game? And I think Saturday was a perfect example of us actually putting that shooting practice and putting it like actually it coming into fruition onto the pitch at the London Stadium. And that finish from Cole Palmer was fantastic. I think it was almost when he started shooting, I felt like this angle was way too tight. And then there was that small gap where I was like, hang on, it's gone in. It's gone off the post and hit the back of the net. So yeah, fantastic finish. And that's what he does really, really well. And I think slowly, we're seeing a really good kind of connection or kind of link-up play between Nicholas Jackson and Cole Palmer as well. So the two of them on the break look really dangerous. And what I like about them is they're slowly now not becoming selfish, and they're kind of happy to pass it to each other in those situations. Particularly what we saw last season with the penalty against Everton, where they were pushing and shoving each other to get that penalty. It seems like now they're gelling a lot better. Madueke also involved at times. So yeah, really pleased that things are finally starting to gel. We're seeing some really good team cohesion on the pitch as well.
Yeah, and I think that's all down to, I mean, I generally think that is down to Enzo Maresca. Not ultimately, not altogether, but I think a lot of it is down to Maresca. I think the way that he's got this team playing now, the buy-in, the belief, they just look completely different to how they did under Maurizio Pochettino and how they did under Graham Potter and Frank Lampard. I think I've said this to you before, but this feels like the first time I've got a bit of confidence with this team. Listening to Enzo Maresca in his press conferences, listening to him post and pre and post match during matches as well. You know, not that he's Jose Mourinho, I'm not trying to put him on that pedestal at all, but just knowing what he knows and what he wants from his team. He's not afraid to come out and say, look, if you're not buying into it, you're not playing. I think he said that after the game against West Ham. He said it before about certain players that, you know, if they're not involved in, or they're not in my plans, they're not playing. And I like that sort of transparency between manager, fans, press. There's no room for speculation as such. Is Chilwell still involved? If is he not, what's happened to him? He's just told us he's not in my plans, so we know that. Very similar to Mudryk, he's dropped down the pecking order. Do you think that Maresca, under the Todd Bowley sort of clear leg blue coat era of football at Chelsea, do you feel like Maresca's the first one that we're seeing some promising signs from to say that he might be able to progress this Chelsea project since the takeover?
I mean, I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel a bit of optimism and kind of signs of promise under Pochettino towards the back end of last season. I felt like for the first time we were seeing kind of what the project was, what we kind of wanted to build on in that summer and take into next season. And then clearly things happened between Clear Lake and Pochettino, and I think they've kind of agreed on transfer plans or players being retained or players being released, and that's what ultimately led to him being parting ways with him, and now he's the US coach. But I think that's the past. We need to focus now on the present, which is what we've got under Maresca. And it's still very, very early days. It's always hard to look at the table and kind of think we're going to still be here at Christmas or come March or springtime. But it is very promising. We're playing some really good football. The team looks like they're really happy to play together. And for the first time in quite a while, it seems like we've got really good depth as well, really good options to come off the bench, influence the game as well. We saw we were 3-0 up against West Ham. We had the likes of João Felix, Neto and Cuckoo, Dewsbury Hall coming on. Mudryk hasn't properly been able to kick a ball yet. So yeah, there's a lot of kind of things to be excited about. And in terms of Maresca, I wouldn't be lying if I said I was watching Leicester every single week last year, or Parma when he was there in Serie A. But from what I've seen so far, I'm really liking it. I like his demeanour and his charisma as well. I think it's quite hard sometimes with these Italian managers because they come across as quite cold and a bit stubborn as well. You look back at Sarri, you look back at Conte, but Maresca seems to take all the positive traits of Italian managers combined with a bit of like charisma, I think. And I think we both kind of saw it that he's managed or played in England previously. He was a player at West Brom. He was Pellegrini's assistant at West Ham, actually. And he obviously was Guardiola's assistant as well, I believe, or worked under Guardiola at Man City. So he knows a lot about the game. He's worked under some elite managers as well. And I think now this is his time to shine. He's part of a really good Premier League team. He seems to have a lot of players kind of buying into him. And even those players that maybe aren't playing as frequently, like João Felix, so far at least, and the others, he seems somehow to get them involved, like Dewsbury Hall. And he's promised Dewsbury Hall game time in the Conference League and in the Carabao Cup tonight. So it's going to be a hard task for him to please everyone. But for now, he seems to be doing that quite well. And hopefully that continues. And I really feel like it's going to be very telling if we're still kind of in a top 4, top 6 around Christmas time, or if we kind of see the typical Chelsea and we kind of drop into, the around 10th, 9th, 8th position. And then we're kind of thinking like, we're going to have to have another season of fighting for Conference League, or if we're lucky, Europa League. But I'm really hoping it's the season where somehow we just kind of have a top 4 push, and dare I say, a Premier League push. I'm only saying that after the Rodri injury, but yeah, I think that's a conversation to revisit at Christmas.
There's a reason why I didn't mention anything to do with our Premier League position when we spoke about West Ham, because I don't want to jinx it just yet. But I did say to you, obviously, on Sunday, if results go our way, we get a draw in the Brighton Forest game, and City were to beat Arsenal, we'd still be in the top 4. We are 5th still, I think. So we're there or thereabouts. But it's your girl, My has said, I like the gaffer. He's real. He has the players' respect. I agree with that 100% as well. I think that's a crucial thing. I think in terms of the fact that the players are buying into it, and I'm not saying they did it with Pochettino, because I think they did. I think there was a lot of unrest still, which has probably been resolved, a lot of that in the summer, I don't know, but it just felt like throughout Pochettino's time at Chelsea there was a lot of unrest, and maybe we got to see some things where he either didn't give a damn at the end, which I think is why we got to see some really good results, and he maybe started to actually do things he wanted to do. He was maybe taking less of an approach from the owners or someone else that was an advisory at the club, I don't know, but it just seemed like as much as things were crumbling at the top for him, he was able to still churn out the results at the back end of the season, which is probably ultimately what led to him leaving the club after the season. But I think with Maresca, he's looked brilliant. like I said to you before, the press conferences, he
Mm,
speaks with conviction. There's no sort of room for error in terms of what does he mean by that, or does he, who's he referring to. He just tells you how it is, and maybe like you said, it's that maybe that's the Italian side in him that does that. But I think also working with Lavia before, he's
mm,
worked with Tosin before, he's worked with Cole Palmer I think before. Don't think he worked with Sancho, but I think their paths didn't cross, I think, at City.
mm,
But he's definitely, and he's worked with Casaday before, he's worked with Dewsbury Hall, so he's getting the buy-in from players that he's already had the trust in them before, so it's not going to be an issue. And I think some of the younger players, which is why we've got a really, I think with the fact we've got a young squad, it helps that you've got someone that is quite to the point rather than sort of wishy-washy with their approach. I think with him being
mm.
straight to the point, it helps some of these younger players as well. So yeah, this for me, this is the first time I felt confident. I said to you on the weekend, when was the last time we were sitting in like the top 4, top 5 positions at Chelsea? As sad as it sounds, it was a while ago. I think you told me it was probably under Thomas Tuchel. So that tells you where we've been in this journey over 2.5 years or so, where we've been. And this is the first time I can sort of see a vision, a project, a direction on the pitch. I can see some patterns of play with this team. So I'm all for it. I want it to continue. I want us to stay as we are and progress.
Yeah, it's really good to see. I can echo everything you said, and we've got 4 home games now on the
Yep.
bounce, including a Conference League and a Carabao Cup one with Forest and Brighton at home to come up. We've got an international break as well. But what I did like is after that September international break is typical Chelsea of a couple of seasons ago. We would have like that would have broken our momentum,
Yeah.
and we would have probably gotten into defeat against Bournemouth. But we kind of really fought hard and got a win. So I think the first game after the international break, if I'm not mistaken, is Liverpool. I think. Yeah, which is a tough one to come back from after the international break.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's going to be. We can talk about it later. And there might be some injury news and players coming back. Maybe Reece James. I think Gusto's back in training now. But yeah, it's going to be a real test now to see how we kind of combine all these fixtures, midweek fixtures, because I think we've got back-to-back weeks now with midweek fixtures. How Maresca keeps the squad content with rotation as well. I think the one player that seems to want to start a bit more and which is completely deserved, I think, is Nkuku, who hasn't
Yep.
kind of maybe started games as
Yep.
much as he would have liked, despite performing really well. So yeah, I think there's going to be an interesting October month. I feel like September, when you look back, we didn't have that much football with Chelsea. I think only maybe 2 or 3 games. So yeah, I think October is going to be a really telling month for kind of whether we kind of stay in that top 4, or whether we
Yeah.
slowly drop into that lower kind of part of the top 10, perhaps.
Yeah. No, I think it's a fair assessment, and I think that goes back to what we said a couple of weeks ago in terms of the squad depth. Having as much depth as we've got is actually a good thing because, I think maybe, and I think two things. I think maybe the international break a couple of years ago, a lot of our players would have travelled over, during the international period, and I know that we still have a large proportion of our players that do go, but even the likes of Sancho stayed. Palmer obviously didn't travel with the in England squad. There's a couple of other players that first team players that were actually at Cobham during the international period, so maybe that helps some of the other players that aren't necessarily involved in international football to see some of the regular faces around. I don't know, but
Yeah. I know we're
let's
going to talk about the press conference and the Barrow game,
yeah.
but I really want to quickly hear your thoughts about Egbali and Tom Bowley sat together at
Yes.
the London
Yeah.
Stadium.
No, it's a good shout. I think I said to you, I think it's two things, isn't it? I think either this is just a bit of PR to calm down the stories in the papers and, to stop speculation about whether they actually are friends or at loggerheads,
Mm,
or they are actually just okay with each other. And, it was a story that was much to do about nothing. So I mean, I personally think there has been a bit of uprest. I think any sort of business, there's going to be differences. You want to take one thing one direction and someone wants to take it another direction. You're going to come to loggerheads. But the ultimate thing is you resolve those issues and you remember why you're in the position that you're in the first place. So I personally think there was probably some unrest in the summer, and they're trying to put on a front now for people to say, look, we are actually sat together in a stadium, drinking coffee together, there's no problems here. As long as it doesn't impact the
Yeah.
football on the pitch, I don't mind what happens up there. But what's your thoughts? What do you think?
I completely agree with you. I think it's one of those two. It could either be that they're just going to stay amicable because they are business partners after all, and they will sit next to each other, but they're not going to be best of mates outside of the football industry. Or on the other side, it could just be that all of this was speculation and it was kind of taken a bit too far. They are on speaking terms, but they're not maybe fully seeing eye to eye on how they want to, the kind of visions they want to take the club in.
Yeah,
That being said, I think it's quite pleasing to see that they are willing to sit next to each other because as a Chelsea fan, you don't want your two kind of main shareholders kind of sitting apart or not kind of talking to each other at all when they're ultimately the people that are going to be taking the biggest decisions that will affect the rest of the football club.
yeah. No, it's a fair point. Honestly, it is. I think I still think there's unrest. I'll be honest. I think there
Yeah,
is, but I mean, if you go to, I don't know, a local business somewhere, two directors own the club or own a business. Sorry, they're probably at loggerheads at some point throughout that 365-day period. So it is going to happen in business. It will. The thing that will show how serious they are about the football club is them actually resolving it and moving past it and making sure that it doesn't impact the club on and off the field. So for me, that's the most important part of it. But we are going to talk Barrow. Let's talk some injury news first. So we know that Malagusto is back in the team. You did mention Wesley Fofana, who was heavily strapped up with his knee, so I would expect him not to feature at all in this game tonight. Romeo Lavia, this game's come too early, so we know that he's not in the team. And Reece James, again, another one who will not be featured. I've got to say it. I know we know this. It's the obvious one, but Reece James is out, so we know that he's not going to be in the game for tonight. But there are some positives because obviously Maresca did say that Ben Chilwell will be in the team. He'll be in the squad, whatever that means. It might be that he just makes up the numbers. He did go on to say, I think, that we'll have to see who makes the bench and who actually starts the game. I think he did say in the press conference he likes to tell the players before the training session who's going to be starting the game, so the players will know who's going to be there. But Chilwell, Mudryk, maybe Carney Chukwuemeka might get a shout. Before we go on to our predicted lineups, what's your thoughts playing League Two opposition, top of their league, newly promoted, I think, into League Two?
yeah.
What's your thoughts going into this game against Barrow?
It's, I think, expectations of Chelsea fan, whether you rotate, you play your B team, whatever, you've got to be beating Barrow. That being said, I think similarly to you, I just had a little quick look at where they sit in the table. Top of League Two at the moment,
Yeah,
5 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss, 16 points currently on. So sure, there's a big kind of gap in quality between League Two and Premier League. But that being said, they're going to have the momentum. They're going to have a lot of confidence. Being the underdogs as well, I think will kind of suit them
yeah,
going into this game. I think we saw it last season when we played AFC Wimbledon. I think they got the opening goal quite early in the Carabao Cup, and then we only managed to scrape a 2-1 win, I think. So sometimes playing these type of oppositions can be a bit tricky. And as well, when we kind of go on to talk about our lineups, I have picked a lineup, but now that I'm thinking back to it, I am a bit worried that this team maybe would have played so often together, and there might be a lack of leaders in that lineup I picked. So I think that needs to kind of be taken into account when we do pick our lineups as well. But also, I do expect us to win quite comfortably. I'm going to jump to my prediction. Actually, I'll wait to share my prediction to the end, but I've already kind of submitted my prediction on the play predictor on the Chelsea app. But yeah, I think it's a must win. But I think Barrow might be kind of like an opening like 30 minutes where we're a bit unsure of what's happening, and maybe they might have a couple of chances that might raise a couple of question marks from the Chelsea defence.
these sort of games really worry me. Not because we shouldn't be able to beat them, but I was watching a few very high, profile sort of social media. We know the sort of people I'm talking about in terms of Chelsea YouTubers, and a lot of them were really disrespectful to Barrow. In terms of it's just Barrow, welcome to Stamford Bridge, Barrow. Look, Barrow are a team that we can't underestimate at all, in my opinion. We have to. I mean, look, this is a trophy. Something that we always say this. No one really cares about playing Barrow or whoever else you might play throughout the tournament. But when you get to Wembley and you're there and you're playing City, Liverpool, whoever, you want to win that trophy. So for me, we have to take it with the respect and treat them with the respect that they could actually turn up at Stamford Bridge and get a result. It's a strange thing. I mean, strange things have happened. I agree with you in terms of the performance, in terms of the result. We should be able to get that. But I do worry that we're, not say we, but there are certain fans, and hopefully this isn't the players' mentality as well, that it's just Barrow. Because if we do go into it with that mentality, what worries me, for similar to Servette, the second leg, we could end up. I don't want to jinx it, but we could end up losing against them. I don't think it will happen, but
No,
it could.
football is football. Anything can happen.
Exactly.
So we've got to kind of not kind of underestimate them. And I do agree. I feel like some Chelsea fans are maybe already talking about being in the next round, but we need to kind of take this game seriously, almost like we're playing a Premier League opposition. I do think we have enough depth to be able to rotate slightly, but we need to also make sure that every single player that's playing this game knows that they're playing because we need to win. We need to qualify to the next round. There's silverware potentially at the end of this at Wembley awaiting. And
Yeah.
I was there at Wembley last season when we lost to Liverpool with the Van Dijk header.
You're not
In,
allowed this year
in
because you're the curse, remember. You are the Wembley.
I am the Wembley curse, yeah. I might have to give you my ticket if I get one, if we somehow get to
if we
Wembley.
make it through past Barrow.
If we make, yeah, let's touch wood. But yeah, I think we can't underestimate them. And like I said, 16 points in League Two. Sure, it's League Two and we're in the Premier League, but sometimes in these type of games, your billionaire status, your Premier League status goes in the bin, and you just have to focus on 90 minutes of football. I think does it go straight to penalties?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
It does.
I think thinking back to Everton's penalty shootout last week and Fulham's, I think was about 14 penalties, wasn't it?
Yeah, so, I think the keepers and then the same players had to take them again against Preston, Fulham. So yeah, a few underdog kind of shocks last week. So let's hope that that doesn't happen tonight as well.
Yeah, no, I hope it doesn't. But let's go to your lineup first. So
yeah,
got your predicted lineup on here, and who you've gone for.
Yeah, I picked this yesterday. I did mention we need to kind of rotate, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, this lineup is almost like a fully rotated team to the one we saw on Saturday. So that makes me think it's quite unlikely. But I think cup competitions, Maresca's hinted that Jorgensen is our keeper. So I think he'll play. I think Sanchez has been fantastic so far this season, bar the maybe Kovacic goal against City. And Jorgensen had that kind of bit of a messy goal he conceded against Servette, I believe. I think in the away tie. So I want to see a bit more from him, but hopefully this type of game he can get a clean sheet and a good performance and show that he's ready to play against Ghent next Thursday. So I've gone with him. I've gone with Vega, left back. I've gone with the Chuckle brothers as the centre backs in Disasi and Badiashile. I feel like if they are going to salvage anything from their Chelsea careers, this is where it starts now. And if they can't kind of put in a good performance against Barrow, then I think, I've lost all hope between the two of them. My right back, I've gone with Josh Ashampong. I think that's how you pronounce it. He looked quite good in pre-season, and I think Maresca's hinted that he's going to be involved with Tyreek George tonight, or at least in the squad. But I think it could be a good game for him to maybe get start. And we sometimes see it with these academy players. They're a bit fearless when they first play. There's no nerves. We saw it with Gilchrist last season.
Lewis Hall.
I think he's the type of player. Lewis Hall a few seasons ago. I think he's the type of player that maybe could be that type of right back we might need at times, and particularly when we're going to know that we might not have Gusto and Reece James fit for at times this season. I think he could deputise. I've gone with my two midfielders as Cassidy and Dewsbury Hall. I think Dewsbury Hall is a guaranteed start. Cassidy, I'm still unsure. I think maybe Maresca might opt for Caicedo or Enzo Fernandez just to have that bit of more experience and leadership.
I will say though, the Leicester connection's there already. You think about the Leicester connection.
That's true.
So
true Leicester connection, and I think again I would put Cassidy in that kind of bracket of player that maybe almost left in the summer. But these are the type of games now where if he doesn't get game time in these games, same with Chukwuemeka, I would really struggle to see where he gets the game time. Then my cam, I've gone with João Felix, with Mudryk and Neto on either side. And then I've gone with Mark Guay as the striker. So if I'm not mistaken, that's a fully rotated team from Saturday. which does worry me slightly because it might be so rotated to the point where some of these players don't know how to play with each other, or that's why I kind of am tempted to put Caicedo and Enzo, maybe even a Adebayo in
Yeah.
there just to kind of gain a bit more stability and a bit more reassurance. Because I think I was messaging you my lineup yesterday, and I kind of told you who's going to be the captain if we do play this lineup, and
Who
I
is going
kind
to be
of
the? Can you tell us who's going to be
yeah.
the captain?
It's going to be. I think it's going to have to be Axel Disasi. I think the most experienced and most aged player in that team, which is a bit. It's crazy to say, but yeah, you're
Trying to
not going to
think
give
of
it
the.
to Madrid.
I was going to try
You're
and
not
think of
going to give it to.
what's the Choco Brothers? What were they called? One was called Barry, I think,
Uh,
wasn't he, or something?
yeah,
He can
but
be
yeah,
Barry because I can't remember the other one's name, but he can be Barry. So
yeah,
Barry
I'll give it to Barry.
Dizazi, Barry Dizazi.
Barry Disasi with the armband, yeah. But hopefully they don't play like the Chuckle Brothers tonight, and
Oh
we
man,
actually call them by their proper names.
yeah,
But yeah, curious to hear your lineup now.
yeah. So not much difference to yours, to be honest. So I've gone for Jorgensen as well in goal. I think perfect time to rest Sanchez. I think he's played some really good football in goal for us. Saved us a lot throughout the season so far. I think we will see a swap in, cup runs, Conference League. We'll see a swap in goalkeeper anyway. So I think this is the perfect time to give him a run out. Gone for Renato Vega, like you, left back. I've gone for Badius Shiel, and I've gone for Tossen as my other centre back. I think my rationale behind that is to try and keep a bit of consistency, and I say a little bit. I mean, we're talking fine margins here in terms of, he played really well against West Ham, looked very, very comfortable on the ball, and I think with Achiampong next to him, he needs someone who's going to be calm, cool, and collective. I'm not saying that Achiampong can't, he's it's not the first time he's kicked a football in his life, but I think he's going to need someone at that level still, even against Barrow, to just have a bit of a cooler head, someone a bit more experienced, played at the high level. So I've gone for Tosin on the right as a right centre back. I have gone for Dewsbury Hall because I think he's, like you said, is a guaranteed starter. He's an Enzo Maresca player that I think has come in to do these sort of jobs. Come in, play the Carabao Cup, play in the Conference League. Potentially play in the FA Cup later in the year. When we get into that competition as well. So I think he's going to be someone that we'll see a lot more of in these competitions. Maybe come off the bench in the Premier League, but I think he's a nailed on starter for these kind of fixtures. I have gone for Moises Caicedo. Reason being, I think we need to have a bit of consistency in this squad against Barrow, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see Caicedo, Enzo maybe second half. I think he'll still want to give his players minutes. I think we've got a game 3:00. Is it Brighton?
Saturday, yeah,
Saturday,
Brighton,
so
3 o'clock.
3:00. So I think he's going to want to give still some of these players who will be playing in that game minutes on tonight to make sure they're still fresh. Not to give them almost a full week off. So I think he'll want to play them. So I've gone for Caicedo alongside Dewsbury Hall. Have I changed my front three? So yeah, I've gone for Pedro Neto left. Right side of that, I've gone for Noni Madueke. Reason for Noni Madueke, again, someone who I think will thrive in a game like this, and I think Achiampong would benefit from having a Noni Madueke, someone who he can try and use down that right hand side, feed balls into Noni Madueke. Noni Madueke can kind of try and do his thing, and I think it goes back to my consistency thing as well. I think we need to start strong, bring on some of the subs after that. We might, the fringe players, I think I want to see them in the second half. So I've gone for Noni Madueke, and the 10 I've gone for João Felix, who I can't believe he hasn't really played as much game time as he should have by now. But I think this is a perfect game for him to get some minutes, get some time under his belt, and to show Maresca what he's actually capable of doing. Maybe try and force his way into that team on Saturday. Big surprise, I think, will be I've gone with Nico Jackson up front. Simple reason for that is I want consistency from Nico Jackson, and the only way he's going to get consistency, whether it's against Barrow, whether it's against Manchester United, is if he's in the team and he's scoring goals. I kind of get the Nkunku thing because, again, I think it really would be harsh not to play him. But if we're 2-0, 3-0 up, first half, maybe early in the second half, that's a perfect opportunity to bring on Nkunku. Perfect time to bring on Carney Chukwuemeka. I have got a question for you actually.
Mhm.
Before I go to some of the comments, do you reckon we might see Renato Vega drop into midfield, which I think he did against? There was a game he played
Bournemouth, wasn't it?
Bournemouth,
Yeah.
so he dropped into midfield. Does that then mean we do see the return of Ben Chilwell?
I think it will be very surprising if he starts. I think he'll be on the
Yeah,
bench, but we have to remember he was with that bomb squad only up until maybe last week or a
yeah,
couple of weeks ago, and he hasn't really played or started a game since pre-season, I think. So I think it might come a bit too soon, and I still think Maresca might kind of stick to what he said and kind of say like he'll be in the squad. He's not in my plans, but he's got a part to play perhaps this season. But I think if you've got your second choice left back in Vega, I think he's the one who's going to start.
yeah.
So yeah, I don't think Chilwell will start. But then again, a couple of weeks ago, I said I don't think we'll ever see Chilwell in the Chelsea shirt again. And now he's training with the first team, so I might be proven wrong again there.
I think he's there just to make up the numbers. I actually do. I
Yeah,
think he's. I don't think we'll see him. I agree with you. I'd be surprised if he even gets on the pitch. I think his days are done. I think that sort of relationship with, going back to what I said about Maresca, I think if he's not keen on you, and you're not showing signs of anything, maybe in training, he won't play. He'd probably maybe play someone. He'd probably put Marco Correa on before he puts Chilwell on, which is strange because I think Chilwell still got a lot to prove, especially at Chelsea. But you know, if the manager doesn't like him or he sees something that we don't necessarily see that he's seeing at Cobham every day, then. But it's just food for thought. Let me know what you think in the comments. I did ask a question to Bogo in the comments about Reece James. Should we sell him? I asked him that question. He's put no way we sell my captain. So he doesn't want the captain to go. He's also asked us a question. What are your thoughts about Enzo Maresca? Because people said he is a championship coach. We sort of answered that already, but very quickly, what do you think, Theo?
he's proving right now that he's better. He's better than a championship. He can kind of operate with a great football team at the highest level. It's still very early days, but like we mentioned kind of earlier in the recording, he's learned from some of the best, the Manuel Pellegrini, the Pep Guardiola's, and that's slowly kind of showing now in his football. And also, like what we said, the way he kind of handles press conferences, his demeanor, his attitude is also proving that he's a top professional.
Yeah,
And he's got that kind of attitude to kind of ignore the noise that's happening around the football club and just focus on getting results on the pitch. But I really hope, like what we said, is that just stays consistent because we've seen this before. These part of purple patches with managers, and then slowly it fades out. Let's remember Graham Potter had a brilliant September, October. Then things kind of fizzled out come November. So yeah, it's all about that consistency now, and he's got the squad to be able to perform at the highest level. So there's no excuses there.
yeah.
But yeah, let's fingers crossed that he is not a championship manager and he can kind of prove his worth in the Premier League.
Yeah, I don't think he's. I mean, obviously he has been a championship manager, so part of that is correct. But in terms of what he's proven so far at Chelsea, you know, I think he's clearly able to go toe to toe with most managers in the league. And like I said, a lot for me is around the buying of the players. If they're buying into what he's doing, the only way it will go wrong is if Maresca messes things up, or we have a string of injuries that are just uncontrollable at the club, or something drastic happens. But I think so far, and one good thing before we wrap up, one good thing about Maresca, he always says in the press conferences, we're looking at game by game. We're just seeing how we can get through, and what we're looking at that game. We're not looking at trying to win the Carabao Cup or win the league. You know, we're just assessing every game as it comes, and then we move on to the next one. And I think that is so good in terms of what the players will need. One focus, get that result. Let's move on to the next one.
Exactly. It's going to sound cheesy to say, but it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, isn't it?
No, no, it's right. It's right because I think sometimes, you know, clubs, they obviously you have internal objectives. Of course, you know, he'll speak to the owners and they'll have objectives they want to reach. But from an outside perspective, that's what you want to hear. You know, you're just focused on Barrow tonight. Right, we beat Barrow, hopefully, and then we move on to Brighton on Saturday, a step at a time. You know, maybe you get to April, May. Yes, of course, you start talking about, depending on where we are, you start talking about the league, or you start talking about top four, you know, Europa League finish or whatever. Then you start talking about those sort of longer term objectives. What do you want to try and achieve this season? But, you know, September going into October, you know, talking about Premier Leagues and stuff is just nonsense.
Yeah.
It's just noise.
Definitely. I know we're going to wrap up soon, but I was actually Googling Josh Achampong, and the first thing that comes up is a YouTube video compilation called Josh Achampong, Welcome to Real Madrid 2024, Skills, Tackles, Passes. Um, I just put a smile on my face knowing that there's one little rumor linking him to Real Madrid, and someone's made an 8-minute compilation of all of his academy passes and highlights.
I tell you who is
Yeah,
going to Real Madrid, Mr. James. He is going, so he will be
yeah,
there. He will be there.
that's a podcast for itself about the
It
future of
is.
Reece James, I feel.
It is. Now, before we wrap up, as we always do, we're going to do our predictions, and I'll let you go first with what you think we will end up with tonight against Barrow.
It's funny because I actually going to change prediction. I was going to mention a bit earlier after hearing your thoughts and kind of, maybe some Chelsea fans, potentially even players, being a bit complacent. I think I had quite a high scoring win for Chelsea on the app, but I'm going to reduce that slightly and give my honest prediction now. I'm going to say 3-1 Chelsea. I think Barrow will get a goal, and I think maybe the rotations, we might see a bit of like lack of fluidity and not the kind of same Chelsea we saw at the London Stadium on Saturday. And I think potentially Barrow could even score first, maybe. So yeah, I'm going to go 3-1 Chelsea.
Yeah, I don't know how many goals Barrow scored. I think you did say the stat earlier, actually. But I think they will nick a goal, and I think we'll win 3-1. It will be a tough first half, but I think we'll somehow churn out the result second half. But I think 3-1 to Chelsea. I'm assuming the draw will be possibly tomorrow then, I think.
Most likely, yeah. I've just got Barrow up right here. They've played 7 games so far in League Two, scored 11, conceded 3.
I mean, if that's not a reason to take a club serious, I don't know what is. But that is definitely League Two Man City-esque form. So yeah, we got to take them seriously, in my opinion. So yeah, I think it'll be a difficult game, but a game that we should not lose either. All right, I think we're done. So thank you for anyone in the comments. We appreciate everyone that's in the comments who's interacted and all the rest of it. Make sure you like this video. Love it if you want as well. Make sure you hit the Linktree link in the description as well. Don't forget to tell your friends to tell their friends, especially Chelsea fans as well, that we're here every week. So yeah, enjoy the rest of the week. Enjoy the game tonight. Theo, I think you're going, so make sure you enjoy. And we'll be back soon. Thank you very much for watching. We'll be back soon.